TPS versus asylum in the United States. So this video is going to be about the differences between TPS and asylum. And what we're going to do is address the advantages and disadvantages of each category. Sometimes it's called pros and cons. The important thing for you to know is that it is possible to apply for both TPS and asylum at the same time. But check our recommendation at the end of this video, as it is important to understand the advantages and disadvantages to apply for both. So what is TPS? TPS is a temporary protected status that is granted on a country-by-country basis in case of widespread violence or natural disaster. When a country is designated for TPS, people from that country who are present in the United States can apply within the specific dates given by the US government. So what are the advantages of TPS, the pros? Well, the first one is that you only have to prove that you are from this country that has been designated for TPS. But please note that there is a time gap between the designation or the announcement and the application dates, and usually that takes a few months. You can also apply for a work permit, the EAD, by filing Form I-765, either at the same time or after the Form I-765. You can also apply for a travel permit by filing Form 131, either at the same time or after you applied for TPS. Please note that you can travel to your home country only with asking for advanced travel parole. That's important. Finally, the average time to receive TPS after your application is usually at this time between 5 to 6 months. So what are the disadvantages or the cons of TPS? Well, it is only temporary, but often it is renewed for multiple years or indefinitely. It is only for you. That means that your family members, like your spouse and children, they would also have to file for their own TPS application. And finally, TPS does not lead to permanent residence or citizenship. So now we'll go over asylum. So what is asylum? So that would mean that someone, you as an individual would be inflicted, you would have to prove that you have been subject to serious persecution if you go back to your country, or if you have suffered serious harm or persecution in the past. It also, for asylum, you have to prove that those who have persecuted you are either connected to the government or that the government itself cannot protect you in case of persecution. Finally, there are very specific categories of persecution, and the basic ones are persecution due to your race, religion, nationality, political opinion, and membership into another similar group. Usually we have, for example, members of the LGBT communities who would fit in that category, or also you can apply because someone in your family has been also persecuted, is very visible as a political dissident, or because of their LGBT sexual orientation, anything of that sort. So, what are the advantages of asylum? The pros. Asylum, if granted, leads to permanent residence and citizenship. You can also include your spouse and children under 21 if they are in the United States with you. If they are back home, once you are granted asylum, you can apply for them by filing Form I-730. And what are the disadvantages of asylum, the cons? Well, asylum claim has to fit those very specific criteria that we've mentioned before. The other big disadvantage is, at least for now, you can wait for a very long time for an interview or for a final decision. You also cannot return to your country until you receive your green card. Of course, you can apply for your green card if you have been granted 1 year after receiving your asylum. So what happens if you apply for both TPS and asylum? Well, if you apply for asylum only and USCIS does not grant you asylum, you have a chance to go to immigration court to defend your case again. That means that you'll be in a defensive process, which means that you can be ordered to leave the US if you don't win your case. There are several options, however, during this process before the final deportation order. If you've applied for TPS, you cannot be deported because you are in lawful status. But this means also that USIS will not be able to refer you to immigration court. Let us explain this point more specifically. This is good and bad because on one hand, having a chance to go to court is also a chance to defend your case. But if you have TPS, then this is not an option for you. For asylum, don't forget you need to apply within 1 year of entering the United States. But there are also exceptions to this deadline. And one exception is that if you have TPS, then you don't have to worry about this 1 year deadline. It usually means that if you have received the TPS within 1 year of arriving in the US, you don't need to apply for asylum until what is called a reasonable time. Usually it is considered to be less than 6 months after TPS expires. So you see, you have a little bit more time to decide what you want to do. So what are our recommendations? Well, the most important is that you think carefully about the pros and cons of each category and how they apply to you. If possible, get a legal consultation if you want to apply for asylum as it is more complex. You can apply for TPS on your own if you follow all the instructions. We have a TPS application preparation on our YouTube channel. Please check the link in our video description. And finally, please check all the services we offer so that if you have further question, you can check with the RIF team. Bye.